Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. I know a lot of people got here early. I hope I'm not too loud. You hear me well. Let's see who got here first. Airbrushing got here first. We have Jolene Turk here as well. Thank you for joining me early. Jamaican Black Queen. Hey, happy to see you today, or happy to have you on the live today as well. And Laquana from Charlotte. Hello. All right, I'm going to start off with this because I'm going to set kind of the agenda for this evening and for the whole month, really. All right, so this week, let me get Laquana out of here. All right, this month, I usually do, and this is my third year doing it, I do special live streams for Black History Month. So that's what you're here for. If not, I'll go live about home ownership by itself on February 22nd. So that's 2 Thursdays from now. So wealth building is tonight, February 8th. Investing is going to be February 15th. Home ownership is going to be the February 22nd, and estate planning will be February 29th. On the home ownership day and the estate planning day, I will have a guest speaker. I'll have an attorney for the estate planning day. So any of your estate planning, will, trust questions, please join me then. And then home ownership, I'm bringing Kevin back. He's the lender. I'm bringing Demetrius, I believe. He's on the West Coast. He's the agent on the West Coast. And I'm trying to get another agent that specializes in first-time home buyers and new construction. So it should be 4 of us on that panel. But February 8th and February 15th will be just me, and that's what you're here for. Now, I posted in the chat just now. I'm going to post it again. My wealth weekends handout or checklist. I want you, if you haven't already, to make sure you're downloading this checklist, because this is going to be kind of the focus of tonight. Let me get this off of here, and I'm going to take questions regarding this, because if you saw kind of the topic of this live, it was that by 2053, Black Americans are scheduled to have 0 net worth. So 0, meaning our liabilities, what we owe, will be more or equal. So we'll have on average 0 net worth. We will have assets and liabilities being equal. So we'll basically have nothing of value to say that, okay, basically our debts equal what we own. So there's nothing, like we have no net worth on average. So again, net worth is everything you own, all of your assets, minus all of your liabilities. So if you, for example, if everything that you own is worth $10,000 and your liabilities, your credit card debt, maybe student loans are $10,000, you have a 0 net worth. But if everything you own, say, is $100,000 and your liability, your assets are $100,000, but your liabilities are just $10,000, then you have a $90,000 net worth. So you want to have a net worth. You want to have a positive net worth. And one of the things, I'm pulling this up, I got this article from Time Magazine. It says, should the United States continue its trajectory, the report concluded the median Black household wealth would reach 0 by the year 2053. So in about 30 years or so, 29 years, the same would happen to the median Latino household by 2073. And he has a big report. In the description of this video, I'm going to place that report because it gives some reasons. But a big part of it is that we have more debt and we lack home ownership. So for example, we're at 45% as of 2023 home ownership. So it means 55% of us don't own a house. And the majority of American wealth is in their homes or in real estate. And then only 41% of us have retirement accounts. So a lot of times, there's a great wealth transfer of all of these baby boomers that are going to be passing away in, the next 10, 20 years. And they're leaving their real estate to their heirs, whoever's going to collect that real estate. But if they don't own real estate, you're not getting anything, right? So a lot of that thing, that's why every Black History Month, I have an attorney to talk about estate kind of topics. So I'm going to be, this Wealth Weekend sheet is what I've created for the 12 things that you should be focusing on. If you're doing these 12 financially, you should be doing financially well. And I wanted to make it super easy. I was a teacher for 14 years, a high school business teacher, and I taught credit. I taught all of those things. But what I realized now that my students are like in their 20s and some of them still messed up with their credit and that sort of thing. And I went back to them and they were like, we weren't paying attention, Ms. Hill. Like they weren't ready for it yet because it was something that was foreign to them. But when they got into the world, it became relevant, if that makes sense. So a lot of times when you guys say, well, I wish I would have learned this in school, a lot of times you probably weren't going to be mentally ready to even, grasp the information, depending on what kind of child you were. So I think as early as you can give your children something like this to say, these are the things that you should be doing as soon as you start earning money or as soon as you start getting an income. These are the 12 things you need to start, preparing yourself for. So it's not when you get older, go ahead and do these things. Like this is what we do. Because somebody asked me, and I am going to take your questions. Somebody asked me, well, what should I tell my children to convince them to do certain things financially? And this is when, kids that are still living with you. And my answer usually is don't tell them what they should do. Say that this is what we do. Like make it a thing. Like when we, start earning an income, we open a Roth IRA. This is what our family does. Because when it becomes routine or it becomes some part of, college, some parents are like, you're definitely going to college. You're going to college. And then it's just automatic. That's all they've heard. They go to college. If all they hear is as soon as you get a job, you start a Roth IRA. As you never get in debt, you build your credit. If they hear these things over and over, it doesn't become something I should think about doing. It's what we do. And I think that needs to change a little bit. So we're just not as ill prepared when we get out into the world, because we're saying, okay, these are some of the things that foundationally that we should have in place. So go ahead. I put it in there. You just have to put in your email. You will get this download. But it talks about budgeting, emergency fund, paying off debt or not getting in debt in the first place, purchasing term life insurance, opening a retirement account. And you should start opening a retirement account as soon as you start earning an income, even if you're young. Building a credit score of 760 or higher. And I put 760 because pretty much above 760, you're getting the best interest rates on anything if you do borrow money. Creating a tax strategy to pay as little tax as possible. Investing beyond your retirement accounts. Those are things like extra real estate, college funds, all of those things. Increasing your income. And this is huge. We can't just wait. I think a lot of people wait to invest because it's like, okay, I'm 20 now. I can't imagine when I'm going to be 60 years old. And a lot of the retirement accounts you start getting at 59 and a half. And a lot of times when you're young, you don't have that wisdom to think, okay, 40 years from now, I'm going to have this money. So I think you need to balance it with I'm saving for my future, but I'm also investing right now. And the quickest way a young person can see that is by building a business, because they can see, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get this. It's more immediate. If all you're talking about is you're going to get this money far in the future when you're 60. I remember when people would tell me that. I'm going to tell you a story in a minute. When people used to tell me that, I'd be like, I'm not waiting until I'm 59 and a half, but as you get that age closer, you're like, oh, that's like around the corner, right? So buy a house is on here because, again, most of people's wealth is built up in their house. In a house and investment kind of goes together. You are living in the thing that is building equity over time. I did put having fun with your money, but you plan your fun. You don't just like put everything on a credit card and then getting a will or a trust. You don't have to do it in this order, but these things need to be done. So you need to start doing them. And even if you just open a retirement account, start with $100 and then start building it as you make more money, you fund it, but you can get started. And I'm going to tell you why I called it Wealth Weekends. And then I'm going to take your questions. So put all your questions in the chat about these types of things. So things that you feel are stopping you from building wealth. It can include home ownership. It doesn't have to include home ownership. I want to talk about it all. So I'm going to tell you two stories, one from me and one about my dad. So the first one, and my moderator is looking at the questions in the chat. So the first one is when my first job at 16 was working at a grocery store. And at the time, my mother was in her 40s and she was opening a Roth IRA. And this is back in the day when they came to your house. I guess it wasn't online. They would come to your house and kind of help you set it up or talk you through it. So I'm leaving out of the house in my like supermarket uniform. And he says to me, "Oh, you have a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a job." He said, "You should open a Roth IRA too." Mind you, I'm 16. My mother's 40 or so. And I was like, "What is that?" I'm on my way to work. I said, "What is that?" He was like, "It's a retirement account. You put your money in here, you'll have a lot of money in the future." Well, I said, "How much do I have to put in the account?" He said about $100 a month. And at the time, that was like one check for me. So say I was making every week $100. So I was like, okay, he's gonna take one of my whole check. Like it was a big, like I couldn't even imagine like giving one of my whole checks for something that I was going to get in the future, right? So at that time, I didn't understand it. However, and I tell my mom this today, if my mom had said, "You know what, Shahida, you're going to do that," I would have done it. Okay, this, like I said, this is what we do. We start a job, we open a retirement account. You know how much money that I would have if I started at 16, investing $100. And that's just what we do. Like we open a retirement account when we start earning an income. So as early as you can kind of teach your children these types of things, the better it will be. And then the last one's for my dad. So my dad, telling my family's business. My parents got divorced. So we were living in the Bronx. They got divorced. My mom moves to Atlanta. And I know there was child support. I was probably a teenager. We have some older sisters. And my dad always used to ask me, he was like, "How old are you now?" Like he used to ask me, "How old are you now? How old are you now?" I'm like, "Daddy, why are you asking?" He probably paid child support till I was about 25 or so, right? Because he never like went down to his human resources and stopped the payments. Of course, my mom was just, she's like, "He paying it. I'll take it as alimony." And I say this to say, the reason why I did this wealth weekends thing is sometimes we're so preoccupied because when he left his job, he worked at the post office. I'm kind of mixing some things up, but he worked at the post office for all his life and then he retired. And then there was an investment opportunity that my grandmother had to buy some property. And she said, "Well, just put in $50,000. We'll be able to get these homes." And he was like, "I don't have $50,000. I had to pay child support. I had to do this. I had to do that." And he had $50,000 over all the time he's worked at the post office, but he never prioritized like savings. He never prioritized. He never took any time. So the wealth weekends kind of the plan really, the reason why I'm calling it wealth weekends is you just take one weekend and say, "I'm going to prioritize getting life insurance this month." Like one thing I'm going to do financially is I'm going to get life insurance 1 week in a month. I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to focus on one thing a month until all of these things are taken care of to the best of my ability using my current income, even if it's just a little bit. So I think about my dad and, I think he was so overwhelmed with everything that was going on in his life. He never prioritized himself financially to have, some, extra money to do some things in retirement. So I wanted to share those two things. I'm taking your questions now. Please download this. I think it's going to be very helpful. I'm going to start videos specifically on wealth weekends. I don't know when, but I'm going to start it. All right. So Sissy, how about some info on buying investment property? I don't have it. That's not a specific question, but I would say when you're ready to invest in property, one of the most cost-effective ways to do it is to do like a owner-occupant mortgage, right? So if you're thinking you want to do an owner-occupant mortgage, that's FHA, that's conventional. They have very low down payments, and the only requirement is for you to live in that house for 1 year, right? And then after that year, you could rent it out. You can do whatever you want to with that property. But one of the advantages is you were able to get that property with a low down payment. So even if you can't do this, these are things that you should be teaching your children. Hey, buy your first investment property. You can rent it out after a year, then maybe buy your next property. I have a video on buying multifamily. So with a regular loan, a regular owner-occupant mortgage, you can buy a 1 unit, a single family. You can buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, and it's still under that same requirements. Anything higher than that is more like a commercial loan and that sort of thing. But if you get anything from a single family to a fourplex, the down payment is low. And if you have to live in one of those units, I'm saying that again, you have to live in one of those units for at least 1 year. So, if you have that opportunity, and I feel like the younger, the better. Sometimes as we get older, we have children, some of these, depending on where you live, some of the multifamily may not work for your lifestyle, where you have to live in a unit next to the people that you're renting, that are renting from you. That doesn't work a lot of times. So I want you to plan. The younger you are, the better. I think the better equipped you are to take advantage of some of these things. That's why you don't want to wait until your child is, 18 or whatever to start talking about this. Start talking about the things like this, like in middle school, just getting it into their mind. Like, this is what I do. This is, I have a trust. I have this, I have that. And these are things that we do. It's nothing that I have to convince you of, right? This is something that to be financially stable, to build wealth, this is what our family does. And this is what you're going to do. The same way you tell them they have to clean their room and brush their teeth or whatever, these need to be like standard talking conversations that we're having with our children. But I do have 2 videos on my channel. One, buying your first investment property, and the other one is buying multifamily. Okay, so watch those. Thank you, Sissy. Thank you for joining me. All right, so if you're just joining me, we're at about 118. I kind of talked about my wealth weekends and the things that you need to begin with in order to, start building a foundation for wealth. Okay. Are there any other questions? Somebody said where to get the info. I'm going to post it again so you can download it. I just did that. Latoya Young. So I have $40,000 in student debt, and it's preventing me from buying a house. I'm 41. What should be my plan? What should be my plan B moving forward? I'm gonna talk about this. I had something else I wanted to say too. Okay, a lot of times, and this doesn't have to do with you, Latoya, but I guess I see a lot of people in this home ownership process. I feel like a lot of people are overeducated. What I mean by that is they have high student loan debt, and the student loan debt is not matching their income at all. So before you go and get another degree or a doctorate or anything like that, make sure you're maximizing. There's so many other ways you can make money. And I'm a product of that, I believe. Like, I didn't know I can make money on YouTube until 3-4 years ago. Like, it wasn't I wasn't even thinking about that. But I was able to do this without going back to school or without doing anything else. Whereas a teacher, in order to increase my income, on my salary scale, I had to get my specialist or my doctorate, that sort of thing. So I want you to kind of think outside the box, try to maximize your current level of knowledge, your current level of employment, before we automatically think, well, I have to get another degree in order to make more money. Okay. So this is my answer to you, Latoya. First of all, if you are on an income-based plan, it's going to vary by the type of loan you take out, right? So if you take out a conventional loan, they will look at the income-based payment. I have a video on the different, every different loan type looks at your student loans differently. I'm assuming by your question, you've already gotten pre-approved, because in reality, it doesn't seem like $40,000 of student loan. I've seen people with way higher student loan debt who are able to qualify for a house. So if you already are pre-approved and that is stopping you, I would see if you could change your payment plan. That would be my first thing, to see if you could change your payment plan into something where the student loans are not impacting you as much as it would. And Kevin, who's a friend of our channel, he has a video, a more recent video even than my video, on student loans that helps you calculate that. So that would be my first thing to do. If it is still an issue, one of the things on here, we have to start increasing our income. I'm telling you, when I was trying to leave teaching, I was like, okay, this is not working. Like, as a teacher, and I don't know if I have any teachers in the chat, but as a teacher, you can work as hard as you want to work. You're going to get paid the same amount. So the effort that you put in, once they have you on a salary schedule, that's all you're going to make. That's why I got my real estate license, because, I can sell 10 houses or 2 houses. It's the most, the effort that I put into it is what I'm going to get out of it. So I would advise you to see, what can you be doing outside of your current employment to make more money? We can't just be stuck where this is how much money I make. Not in this day and age, where there's so many opportunities. There's so many opportunities online, AI, like there's so many things that you probably could be doing with your current skill set to be monetizing that outside of your current employment. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm saying this is like a wake up call to say, I need to be making more money, either to pay off these student loans altogether or to make the payment on my student loans not matter as much because my income is higher, because it's all just being factored into your debt to income ratio. If your income is higher, your student loans don't matter as much. So first thing I would see, what kind of payment plan can I get on, or can I change my loan type where the student loans don't matter as much? And then the second thing that I'm doing is increasing my income and making a heavy focus on increasing my income. All right, we have a super chat. I'm gonna take that one. Thank you, Latoya. Okay, Latanya. Really quickly, Miss S, can you do a video on bank statement loans, pros and cons? I don't have a video. I do recommend a video that you watch. It's Kevin's video, but let me talk about it really quickly. Thank you for the super chat. So a bank statement loan. Now I did do a video on a DCSR mortgage, and it's kind of like a bank statement loan, but you don't have to show any of your income. So watch that video because you can buy a house. The down payment is high though. So the down payment is 20%, but they don't look at any of your income. They just look at the rental property, like how much the property can rent out for. So if that might be of interest to you, but that's more for an investment property, not for a property you're going to live in. So let's talk about bank statement loans. So if you're self-employed, like I'm self-employed, okay, the pros of, and a lot of self-employed people, they take a lot of deductions. So for example, I make 200,000 and I deduct 150,000 of that to show the IRS that I'm just making 50,000. Whether that's true or not true or whatever, that's not my business. But a lot of self-employed people, their revenue is this, but their actual income that they claim on their taxes is much lower. So what happens, you do this for a couple of years and now you're ready to buy a house and you're like, I want, this kind of house. But when they look at your documents, they're like, well, you only make $50,000 a year. You only can afford this type of house. And that's what happens with a lot of self-employed people. And then they're like, well, I'll just do a bank statement loan. So a bank statement loan, you don't have to show all your financials. You don't have to show all of that. However, because the lender is taking more of a risk with you, because you're not showing them your financials, all of those, their credit, your tax returns, those types of things. You're just like, I have this money in the bank. That's why they call it a bank statement loan. You should take a chance with me. They are going to increase the down payment in order to mitigate some of that risk. They're going to increase the down payment needed. So it might be 20%, 25%, 30%, depending on your credit score, right? And then that interest rate is going to be higher. So you have to think like, okay, do I want to put down a higher down payment, pay a higher interest rate? These are the cons. Higher down payment, higher interest rate. Do I want to do that? Or do I want to, work with my accountant to make it look more realistic as to what I make? Because if you talk to your accountant, they don't have to take all your deductions in the same year. They can spread out your deductions. So a lot of times as self-employed people, you have to go to your accountant and say, hey, I'm planning on buying a house this year. Or you have to kind of plan ahead. So then they're not deducting as many things as they would normally deduct. So you have to see which one makes the most sense for you. But those are the pros and cons. The pros are you're able to get a loan, right, without showing all your tax returns and that sort of thing. Thank you for the super chat. All right, so let's, while we're pulling up the next question, let me go over the first line of this. So the first line, I know you can't see it because of the glare, is create a monthly budget. People don't budget their money. I have a video on how my husband and I budget, like how to budget as a couple. Watch that. I have a regular budget video coming out this month, but how we budget as a couple, watch that. But you should be budgeting your money every single month. That way you're not emotionally spending money. You need a plan. So you're not like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go eat out. I am tired. Things that you do emotionally. Oh, I'm, sad, I'm gonna go shopping, right? A budget helps you stop a lot of that emotional spending. And then once you get your check, it has to go out immediately because you made this plan. Like I sit down still like with our budget and I'm like, okay, all the income's here, move into this. This goes to our kids' 529 plan. This goes to our retirement account. This pays the mortgage. There's no money sitting. The only thing that's sitting is in our spending accounts. We both have a spending account. So at one joint account, two spending accounts. That's determined how much we both get in that spending account. Everything else is gone. Like it's in the account that we've decided ahead of time where our money needs to go. So there's no money just sitting in a checking account for the most part, unless it's like an emergency fund, something like that. There's no money sitting. So that's, you have to do a budget. Your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months. If you're retired or if you have like, real estate kind of income, you don't know exactly what you're going to make. 12 months is probably better. And then paying off your debt. If you're paying 22% of your debt or 22% interest on your debt, then it doesn't make sense for you to be making 10% in the stock market. It's a negative, right? The only exception is if you have like a 401k or 403b and your employer is matching in a certain amount, that's like 100% return. You need to invest up until that match and then go start paying off your debt. Unless you're on like a student loan forgiveness, like I did public loan forgiveness. So I got my student loans forgiven. So I didn't pay off my student loans. But you have to kind of make that plan for yourself. All right. Hey, Ronald, Mrs. Hill, what are your thoughts on seller financing? I'm okay with it. I would definitely tell you to see a lawyer if you're doing any kind of seller financing deals, because if you ever default on it, you want to know what happens. Do they get to keep the money you've already put into it? And all seller financing deals are a little bit different. Since you're not going to a lender, you're basically borrowing it from the seller. And so they put whatever terms they want to put on the loan. And at what point can they take that loan back if you don't pay? Are they still owning the property while some people will like kind of lease purchase, but they still own it. So if they stop paying the mortgage, if they have a mortgage on it and they're financing it, there's just like a whole bunch of different ways you can do seller financing. So I would say if you are thinking about doing that, make sure you have a real estate attorney to represent you. I wouldn't go in it just with a real estate agent. I would have an attorney looking over everything as well. All right, good question, Ronald. All right, so let's go this. I'm going to go over the second line. I already answered Ronald's question. So the second one is purchase term life insurance. So term life insurance is just for a certain amount of time. It's the cheapest life insurance you can get. Whole life insurance mixes investing for the most part with your life insurance. You don't really need whole life insurance. You can invest separately, and then you could do your life insurance separately. That's usually the most cost efficient way to do it. But a lot of insurance agents push term whole life insurance because they get paid more from it. So for example, I think when we got our life insurance policies a while ago, I think we did like 500,000 when we were teaching, and I pay about $250 a year. My husband pays like $320 something a year for $500,000 in coverage right now. We had to get some more life insurance, but they go by how likely are you to die, all that kind of stuff. So they had to come to the house and weigh us and take some blood. It's like a nurse, I guess, comes to your house and does it. So we got it a while ago, and we did 20-year terms. We're like, okay, how long for these kids are out of the house? Because those are the people that are depending upon us financially. And that's what you're really getting life insurance for. You're getting life insurance for the people that are dependent upon you financially. And so they would be out of the house fully. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. We got it probably when they were young. So we were like, okay, they'll be out of the house fully after that age. So we did 20-year term policies. After that, you're kind of probably able to self-insure, but you can get a 30-year term as well. But term life insurance is the cheapest type of insurance you can buy. And so that's what's usually most recommended. So again, this Wealth Weekends is like the basic things you should be doing with your money to build wealth. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. You can put up the next question. I'm just going over this till the next question comes up. So I was saying that, yeah, but be very cautious when people are pushing whole life insurance policies versus term life insurance policies. And then you can max out, of course, your any life insurance policies offered by your employer. A lot of times those are a little bit less expensive too. Rochelle, do you have any experience purchasing stocks by the dollar, fraction sharing? Not really. Well, let me not say that. If I'm going to do investing next Thursday, but I'm just going to talk about this really quickly. So it's basically, she's saying, okay, say that Chipotle stock is $15,000 a share, right? for one share of Chipotle stock, and you can't afford one share of Chipotle stock. So you just buy a fraction of it. You buy some of it. That is a thing, but it's also a thing for you to buy the entire S&P 500 and put in, $100 or $200 and own the entire index, right? You want to do things that are less risky for the most part and have the most return. So we're going to talk about investing in more detail next Thursday. So if you're trying to get a basic understanding of investing, I'm going to go over that. But that's when I have two of them are investment blocks: opening your retirement account and then investing beyond your retirement. So these are two of the things. I don't really agree with, like, okay, for example, I'm going to put $100 in the stock market and I'm going to buy Microsoft stock. Like, that's not, number one, is high risk because you're only investing in one company, right? You want to have a more diversified strategy when it comes to investing, unless you have say you're done with all of these 12 things. You're like, I maxed out all of these 12 and I want to take some of my money and be a trader in the stock market. That's something you can do, but make sure you have all of these things covered because you're doing higher risk, more high risk activities when you're just trading stocks. Like one stock or a couple of stocks is more high risk. Okay. So, but come to the investing on Thursday, I'm going to kind of go over everything. Thank you for that question. All right. So while we're pulling up the next question, the next line is open a retirement account and build a credit score of 760. And the reason why you're opening a retirement account, because retirement accounts, the government has set them up, be it the Roth IRA, 401k, to have special tax advantages if you put money in these accounts, right? So that's something that you want to try to max out. A lot of them have maximums. So once you max those out, once you have other money, that's when you would look in other investment areas. But the first thing you should do is go ahead and max out your retirement account, save some of those taxes, and then invest in other areas. All right, Don Juan, should I refinance my car to get a lower rate to make my DTI lower? Okay, I'm gonna talk about two things in this one question. Number one, people's car payments are one of the largest, I don't know if it's a number one, it's definitely number one, number two thing that's probably stopping people from buying homes, because you have high car payments. And when I say high car payments, as a percentage of your income, your car payments are too high. So you're making $3,000 a month, you have an $800 car payment, because a lot of times it's much easier for you to qualify for a car than it is for you to qualify for a house. So a lot of people, the first thing they do is get a car instead of going to buy a house. I think it should be totally the other way around. You should buy a house first, then see what kind of car you can afford, right? So it really depends on this answer, whether you should refinance your car to get a monthly payment. I think it depends. Because sometimes it's not going to be significant unless you go ahead and refinance it and start paying that car off of like a much longer term, usually, unless you're going to get a significantly lower interest rate. So say you were at like a 12% interest rate and you go to a 5% interest rate or something like that, and you keep the same term, like number of years to pay it off, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're just basically going to go from a 5-year, say you had a 5-year car loan, and now you're going to stretch it out to a 7-year to make that payment lower, so now you can afford a house, I'm not sure I would do that overall. But I would run the numbers. I would say, okay, how much would I save on this payment? Say your payment goes down $100, $200. How much more of a house can you afford? I would have the lender do that. So the lender needs to do that, and you need to see what your refinancing interest rate is going to be and what your refinancing terms as far as years. Like, how much more are you going to be paying for this car over the time if you refinance it? I mean, if you're going to refinance to a lower interest rate, then that's great. But if you're just going to refinance and just lengthen the term of it, that may not make much sense. So let me try to clarify. If I'm in this situation, I'm going to go to my lender, mortgage lender and have them run the numbers. How much would my car payment have to go down in order for me to qualify? And then I'm also looking at the refinancing options and saying, okay, am I refinancing just to lengthen the term of this and get my payment lower, or am I lowering my interest rate, or am I doing both, and see which one makes sense? Because I guess if you're about to pay off your car and you say you have a year left or 2 years left, I'm just hustling and getting that car paid off as quickly as possible. Do you talk to people one-on-one? I am right now, you got no. No, I do not offer one-on-one consultations. Sorry. But I have a Facebook group. I go live. I do a lot of little things like that. But yeah, I don't do one-on-one. While we're thinking about the next question, I'm gonna do the third line. Create a tax strategy. A lot of y'all waiting on these big tax refunds when you could be getting that money all year long. If they're taking a lot of taxes out of your check, then when you're getting these big tax refunds, you should be consulting with your accountant, hopefully, a tax preparer that does more than just filing taxes, actually like do tax strategy with you and say, what do my withholdings need to be so I can get this money all year long? I don't want to just wait until January, February, March in order to get my refund. And then I talked about investing beyond retirement accounts, 529 plans. So your children don't have to, do student loans, a whole nother story. You can invest in other stocks, mutual funds, real estate, that sort of thing. And then increasing your income. You should be everyone should be actively increasing their income, either with your current employer. Like, are you maxing out what you should be getting paid when you go to work every day? And then can you be making money outside of work with your current skills in the marketplace? Like, go ahead and start selling what you give your employer 40 hours a week for. How can you make that money on your own, right? BMST Group, hello. It says, what is your stance on business credit for your business, corporation, or LLC? I think with Instagram and TikTok and YouTube as well, there's been a big push with people, business credit. Everybody that I've talked to that have substantial businesses and are making a lot of money from their businesses, I haven't had one person yet say they didn't have to start using their own credit first when they were doing like bigger deals. I'm not talking about a $5,000 loan or something, but when they were trying to do big deals, as far as investing in businesses and that sort of thing, at least at first, they looked at your personal credit along with what your business was earning. So I think it's a misnomer. I think it's misleading for a lot of people, thinking like my personal credit can be trash and then I'll build a good business credit over here and I'll be able to, run this life and just do everything through my business. I think in the real world, when you really get down to it, when it's time for you to invest in your business or spend money out of your business, then at least at the beginning, your personal credit is going to be considered. And I've heard this from like millionaires. They were like, they still looked at our personal credit. Now, the other thing that I want to mention with this is your business. When you're buying things in your business name, your business needs to be making money. Okay. So you can't just be like, oh, I want to go buy a house. People ask me that all the time. I want to go buy a house, a car, whatever my business name. You're going to have income in that business. They're going to be looking at that business and saying, what is that income like? So just be mindful of it. I'm not saying it's not possible. I just think it's not as easy as a lot of people are thinking about. Like, you can't have a business with no income and people are going to extend you all of this credit. So your business needs to be successful. And usually they're looking at your tax returns, your bank statements, all of that. Kisari. All right. At what point in the homeowner process should we begin to apply for financial assistance? I don't know if you're speaking of the pre-approval or down payment assistance. I think definitely for down payment assistance, start looking at some of those programs at least 6 months out. So what you qualify for and what you don't qualify for. I did a whole live on that last month. But as far as buying a home, I would say 3 to 4 months out at the latest. You want to start that process of getting pre-approved and that sort of thing. Good question. All right. I'm going to do this last one and then I'm going to take your question, Rochelle. The last list of the 12 are buy a house, have fun with money, and then get a will or a trust. So a lot of times, especially in the Black community, because I am doing these lives for Black History Month, a lot of times in the Black community, um, we, what am I trying to say? We we lose wealth because the person that passes away doesn't have a will or a trust, and sometimes we have to go through probate to get those things divided and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, the probate expenses and all of those things are adding up, and so the estate is being dwindled down during those times. And a lot of times, was it Aretha Franklin had this whole thing where they had to pay lawyers and this and that because they were fighting over the property. There was not a proper will, or finally they agreed on one of the wills. But a lot of the state costs went, to lawyers and that sort of thing. So have a will or a trust in place. Have this conversation with your parents, parents, grandparents, if you know that there is no will in place. So say that there's no will in place for your parents, your grandparents, you need to be making a plan of when they do pass away. If everything happens as nature, like your parents or grandparents will pass away more than likely before you. What will I do if they die? I already know that they don't have a will. I already know that they don't have a trust. What will I do? How will I prepare for that now? Because the inevitable is coming, right? So if you have siblings and that sort of thing, if they just don't ever get a will, they never get a trust, start having those discussions now. I'm going to have a lawyer, again, on the 4th Thursday this month. A lawyer will be here to talk about a will and a trust. All right. So what are your thoughts on creating a solo 401k as an entrepreneur? I think that is a good idea. They also have a SEP, like a self-employment pension. You can also look into. So I think if you are self-employed, you need to maximize any retirement accounts that you qualify for, because you don't have, a lot of times, depending on how you're set up as you being self-employed, you don't have a pension, you don't have Social Security if you've been, or you might have it if you've had previous jobs, you don't have that. So a lot of things is going to be on you, right? If you are not doing that business in the future. So you have to be, and a lot of times for self-employed individuals, they'll allow you to put a lot more money in your retirement accounts because you are self-employed. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. I want to make another point about the life insurance, because I said 500,000. As we made more money, you have to increase your life insurance because you have more things that you need to take care of. So it should be 10 times your income. So if you're making, what am I saying? If you're making $100,000, you need $1 million policy. But every time you, like I wasn't making this, when we first, I wasn't making what I'm making when we first got those life insurance policies. So we had to increase our life insurance over time. So just make sure that you're getting enough life insurance so everything will be taken care of. Even if you're not married, if you have children and you're dependent on child support, you should have a life insurance policy on that parent. Be the mother, the father, you should have life insurance on the other parent that you are receiving income from. All right, so I'll take the next question. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining me. The info sheet, I put some links already. Thank you, Deanie. I like having you here. Let me put it back in here. So it's Wealth Weekends. I'm going to take this one, moderator, real quick. Joseph Reed said, can you make a video on how to sell a house? Because I'm thinking about selling my house, but don't know how. And I want to know for sure what I'm doing. Good question. I do have a video. If you go to my channel, it's easier for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just my phone or YouTube, but you can search for videos on the desktop, but I don't think you can search for videos. And I could be wrong, but I've tried it on my phone. So, but I do have a video and I will post it in here later, unless the moderator can find it, about selling your first house. So I did do a video about selling your first house, but I'm going to give you, so watch that video, but I am going to give you some tips really quickly. All right. Number one is there's no set commission rate. So you have to negotiate. If you're going to hire a real estate agent to help you sell your house, which I think you should, they're going to be able to walk you through it. But there's no set rate. You can negotiate how much you're going to pay your agent, if you're going to offer anything to the buyer's agent. All of that stuff is negotiable. I would interview at least 3 agents to sell your house. How are they going to market it? What are they going to do? They should help you figure out a seller net sheet. Okay, if I sell my house, right, and I have to pay you and I have to pay off my mortgage and pay, what am I going to get at closing? A lot of times you get that money right at closing. They wire it to your account like in the next 5 minutes. At closing, you get your money right then. A lot of people don't realize that sometimes. You give them the keys, the closing attorney or title company will wire you your money almost immediately. So know that you can negotiate with your agent. But another thing you need to make sure you're aware of in your market is you have to treat your home, because a lot of people are living in their home. They get so comfortable and they think they can just sell their house and still have all their shampoo out and their stuff out. You need to treat your house in order to get the most money for your property. Treat it like a model home. You have to say, once I've decided to sell my house, this house is no longer mine. I'm going to make it look like it's a model home. When somebody comes into it, they're like, I could live here. So you want to neutralize that house. You want to make sure that house is clean, beds are made, kitchen's clean, not cluttered. That's going to get, your house is going to sell for more, and your house is going to maybe get multiple offers. But a lot of people, they just put their house on the market and they keep on living. And that is usually why a lot of times things stay on the market longer than they should. Do any deferred maintenance. If you know you need to paint, or you need to do some things, start doing those things now. Prepare your house to get the most money you can for that property. All right. Thank you so much. All right, Sierra. Hi, I know you said start the pre-approval process 3 to 4 months out, but I'm looking to be under contract around October. Okay. So you would start in October, September, August. You start like in July, I guess. Do you think it is smart to start comparing lenders and rates and Section A fees now? No, I don't think I think you're too early probably to be doing that. I would probably, if you've never bought a house before, I'm going to maybe now just do one pre-approval and see what they're offering you, because your income's probably not going to change that much between now and July. Your debts are probably not going to change that much. You don't want any surprises, because what happens is people, I'm going to buy a house in October, so I'll start, everything in July, August, and then they realize, they have to clean up something on their credit. Their debt to income ratio is higher than they thought, and they're saying you can't buy a house until you do this, 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 and this. I'd rather you start doing that, the list of things you may need to do now, than waiting until it's, your lease is about to be up, that sort of thing, right? And another thing, I don't know what live I talked about this on, but I said, don't necessarily, I don't know if October is just when you want to move or that's when your lease is up. Don't make your lease being up when you decide to start looking, because sometimes it's going to make sense for you to break your lease or terminate your lease early if a house comes on the market that meets your criteria. So you want to be open to potentially breaking your lease. I went over, I don't know what video this is, but I went over what that looks like, and how much you may have to pay, and when your first mortgage payment is going to be due. So look through my lives. I know I did it in the last month or so, but yeah, I would say I would get pre-approved now, just so I can see, okay, I approve, because a lot of times people are surprised that they're not approved for what they thought they were going to be approved for. And so they're thinking, I'm going to be in a $500,000, $600,000 townhome, and they're like, oh, you're approved for $350,000. So you want to just be as early as possible so you can be prepared. So I would just get one pre-approval out of the way, and then when I'm truly ready, then that's when I'm going to be shop. I'll probably do 2 more and then shop those rates then. Good question, Sierra. All right, I am Sierra. I'm blessed by the best. I'm in Georgia. I closed on my home November 22nd. I didn't do my homestead exemption last year. Shame, shame, shame. But it's okay. I have decided to do it this year. What do I need to do? So this is for everybody. A lot of times states will offer, Georgia definitely offers this. They'll offer you a tax break, so a lower property tax on your primary residence. So you only have one primary residence where you live. They'll offer you a lower property tax, but you have to apply. They don't just naturally automatically give it to you the majority of the time. In Georgia, the application time, you have to apply by April 1st with your county. So you go to your county tax commissioner and they will have what you need to fill out now, and you go ahead and just apply for that. What I'm trying to say, but every state is going to be a little bit different. And I would say, like, this is a hack. Share this with everyone, or it definitely is, for the most part, law in Georgia. So there's something called the senior exemption. So if you have at least one, and it varies by county, but say the county that I live in, seniors are exempt from the school tax, and school tax is like 65% of the property tax. But as soon as you get to 62, you're exempt. But say that, you're like doing multi-generational living, you and your, say, husband are in your 30s, but your grandfather lives with you and he's over 62. If he's on your title, the entire property qualifies for the exemption. So you need to make sure, like, check those laws. If you're above, usually it's 62, 65, you get the senior exemption. That can save you a lot on your taxes, but look for your state, what exemptions are available on your property taxes. But go ahead and apply so you don't miss the exemption. If you apply by April 1st, it will be applied to your 2024 taxes. All right, good question. All right, the moderator did find the how to sell your house video, so you can copy and paste that. And thank you so much for that. All right. Question. If you're just joining me, let me just reiterate while we're here. So this is the first part of my Black History Month series where I'm going over wealth building, because it is proposed that African Americans will have a zero net worth by 2053. And so this is a plan of things you should be working on now as early as possible, not just for yourself, regardless of your age, your grandchildren, your children. Everybody needs one of these, and you kind of go through and say, these are the things you need to be working on to build wealth. And, that's what the checklist looks like. The links are in the description, so you can get a look at that. But thank you for joining me. Yeah, I know I'm gonna show my home video in a minute too, but I'll take another question first. I already answered this question from Rochelle. Thoughts on a solo 401k? Anything that you can do, while we're pulling up the next question, anything that you can do that's going to tax shelter you and allow you to invest, you should be taking advantage of. So it could be a solo 401k, it could be a SEP, it could be a Roth IRA, everything. I think she's thank you, Joseph. I'm gonna take a few more. Thank you so much. I also want to let you know that because of your channel, I was able to buy my first home. Thank you, Joseph. And you look young, Joseph. You're on your way to selling your first house and probably buying another one. Proud of you. All right. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to take over for a second because I think I'm getting the same questions. Seba. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Mr. Brown, best credit union for obtaining a mortgage for first-time home buyers. Number one, I'm not sponsored by any credit unions. I'm not going to give you any credit unions. And I don't talk about any specific banks. I always tell you guys to get 3 quotes. So the best credit union is going to be the one maybe you're already banking with or one that's around. There's not necessarily a best credit union. You want to be looking at their rates and you want to be looking at their fees compared to other. So if you definitely want to go with a credit union, go ahead and get 3 credit union quotes and figure out, which one is best. Okay. But there's no, I would say, best credit union for obtaining a mortgage for first-time home buyers. But good question. All right, I'm going to make sure, go ahead and put all of your questions in the chat. I'm going to make sure that I didn't miss anything because the moderator is pulling up questions I already answered. So go ahead and put any questions. Otherwise, we may have answered all the questions, which that is really good. So let me reiterate, download this. This is your assignment for the month. It's for you to download this and start working on these. I know some people said they already had a 12 out of 12, 11 out of 12. So kind of score yourself out of 12. How many of these things you already have taken care of? and then kind of go from there. All right, I think I have some new questions. All right, hey, Mommy T. Oh, that's a cute picture. Hi, Shahida. What is your feeling on adding a teenager to a credit account in order to build their credit history? If you have good to excellent credit, not giving them a card. Thank you. Okay, so I think this could be a good idea. And let me say that could, because I worked at a school where parents have put a lot of things in their children's names when their credit wasn't good. Not saying you, Mommy T, and it messed up their credit when they already had bad credit when they were 18, 19. So it can work opposite as well, right? So if you start putting your children's names on things and then you mess up financially, that can hurt them. And a lot of times they have to, in order for them to clean up their credit, they have to file a identity theft, like police report or something along those lines against their own parent. And a lot of them don't want to do that. So I'm not saying that you're doing that, but I'm saying that could be something that happens. So be very cautious when you're adding your children to your accounts, and then make sure you're very financially responsible as well, right? So I think it is good, right? I think it is a good option that you can add your children to your account. So when, they already are starting to build a credit history off of your credit history. However, and you don't have to tell them, it's gonna be something that you're just doing. I want you as well, because some kids get a sense of entitlement because they didn't have to build it themselves. So they may never know. And I'm not saying, and it could be going both ways. You have to know your children. They will never know how to build it themselves because it was already given to them. So they didn't have to make sure they were paying their bills on time. They didn't have to make sure that they were, being financially responsible because they were already given something where they had a really high credit score. So you could do it, but you have to find other ways that they're going to be building this or understanding it. Because sometimes when you are given something, you don't fully understand what it takes to build it. There are a lot of children that are given, they don't have to work for anything. You need a video game system, you get it. You need clothes, you get it. So you never get the feeling of, oh, I have to work to earn money. We got a lot of people sitting on living in their mama's house, their basement, their couches, because they were given everything in life. And so now they haven't built the capacity to work and will know what it means to go out and, oh, I have to go out. Oh, you're going out to make money, mom, dad, or whatever. Now I have to do it. You've given me everything so far. That's my only caution. Again, because I've taught teenagers for 14 years. And you could tell the students that they have a good work ethic. Their parents are kind of building something in them versus kids that have been given something their entire lives and they haven't learned to build that discipline. So I haven't decided whether I was going to do that for my own children, because I don't know if I want them to just build it themselves. Like, I'm going to teach you the tools and this is what you need to do, because I don't want you to go away from me. You haven't built it on your own and then you destroy your credit in the future because you didn't know how to establish it in the first place. But I think you have to take it child by child and see who's going to be responsible with it and who's not going to be responsible with it. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. So I'm interested in your masterclass. What's the details? Good time to show my video. All right. I'm going to take 5 more questions. If you have a question, Kim, thank you for the Wealth Weekends concept. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll take 5 more questions. I am going to show my video and then I'm going to put in my masterclass and then I'll take 5 more questions and I'll talk about what we're going to do next week. Looking for guidance on the first-time homebuyer process, and are you tired of those first-time homebuyer guides that leave you with more questions than answers? You are not alone. Most of those guides provide basic definitions and explanations because they're afraid to dig deeper, because they don't want to give you too much information, because then you may question what they're doing, your inspector, your agent, your lender. But what if you could become a confident first-time homebuyer armed with knowledge and clarity? Introducing my first-time homebuyer masterclass and Confidently Closed digital handbook. Join thousands of successful homebuyers who have unlocked the secrets to a seamless home buying journey. My comprehensive resources include a step-by-step masterclass, exclusive Confidently Closed digital handbook and sample documents, and a bonus new construction mini masterclass and checklist. You're not going to find this organized like I've organized it anywhere else. Our 9-step video masterclass, explainer videos, and 40-page digital handbook will be your trusted companion through the home buying process. Don't let the complexities of home buying overwhelm you. Invest in your education today and make confident decisions from the start. Check my reviews and the thousands of people that I have helped confidently buy their first home. All righty. All right, thank you for watching that. All right, so I'm gonna take these last 5 questions. I'm gonna take the first one because I see it. What's the process after death of a paid off property? Now, this depends. So definitely join me on Thursday for the estate and will planning. So if someone dies without a will, it definitely is going to be probated and the court decides what happens with that property, okay? Now, if you have a will, it still has to go to probate to make sure there are no other heirs that may want to contest the will. So they have an opportunity for contesting it, or that's not a valid will, or that's not, legitimate, that sort of thing. So it still does go through probate. If the person has a trust, then it doesn't go through probate. It doesn't go to court. The executor of the trust or the trustee will go ahead and disperse the funds or disperse the assets the way the person that passed away had identified prior. So they've already said, this person gets my house, this person gets my life insurance, this person gets this. So they don't have to go to court. That's the biggest difference between a will and a trust, is that you don't have to go to court. Now, the majority of definitely African Americans, probably most Americans, are dying without wills. So it goes to court. The people, whoever the heirs are, whether you have children, a spouse, all of those things, the judge decides who gets the property. And I'm not an attorney, but typically the spouse is like the primary person, then the children are secondary. And one of the things that the probate person brings up is that just because you have half siblings and that sort of thing, whoever's parent that is, they're a whole sibling. They're equal to you. Just because you may have some of your siblings may have the same mother and father. If there's any outside siblings of the person that's deceased, they're equally, able to get that money or get whatever the property is. But that's the difference. It goes to the heirs. Now, if it says paid off property, so say it goes to 4 people, right? They typically, the house will be sold, and then those 4 people will get whatever is sold for. If say it's sold for $100,000, each of the 4 people will get the $25,000. Now, if the estate has any debt or anything like that, that debt may have to be paid off first, right? Maybe they owe property taxes or other debts. So maybe that's $50,000. Now you're only getting $10,000 or $12,500 each, right? So it all depends. But when you don't have a will, the judge decides what happens with that property. Good question. Now, if the property still has a mortgage on it, I just want to bring this up. If the property still has a mortgage on it, if you want to keep the house, as long as you're paying that mortgage, you don't have to qualify for that mortgage. You just keep on paying it, and you don't have to qualify for it. So that's something that people want to note. So if that property has a mortgage, you want to keep the house, as long as you keep on paying for that mortgage, you don't have to qualify for it in your name. You will tell the mortgage company that this person has passed on, you're paying the bill now, but there's not like a separate pre-approval process to qualify for that house or that mortgage payment. You just keep on paying the mortgage as if, the person was paying it. Are REOs a good investment for first-time home buyers? REOs are real estate owned properties, or what is it? Well, I forgot what the REO stands for. Basically foreclosures, that sort of thing. I've done a video on foreclosures for first-time home buyers. So the answer is yes and no, right? So most first-time home buyers, you're not going to buy them at the auction steps because you don't have the cash. When people are auctioning off properties for foreclosure, they're paying cash. They have cashier's checks. They win the bid, they pay for it either the same day, the next day, typically they're paying right then. So a lot of first-time home buyers, you can't say, I'm going to use my my FHA loan on a foreclosed property. But so it's a good idea if you can find one that did not sell at auction and the bank has put the property back on the market. That is less common than it used to be, because a lot of times in like the Great Recession, there were a lot of foreclosures. So everything wasn't sold at the courthouse steps. They were able to, you have to relist them. You had more opportunities to buy a foreclosure. So it really depends, right, on the process. But I do have a full video about first-time home buyers buying foreclosures, okay? And that is real estate-owned properties. Okay, Lean, Reed. I was going to ask that question. Let me put it back up. Sorry. I make $65,000 a year plus $13,000 in child support a year. And the only debt I have is a $314 a month car payment, but I'm only approved for $1,900 a month mortgage through NACA. Is it better if I use FHA? I think so NACA is a conventional loan, and I'm trying to think why you're approved for much less. So NACA is, for those of you that don't know what NACA is a program that allows you to buy a house with no down payment, no closing costs, no mortgage insurance, so it's like a really good loan product if you can get it. It's a conventional loan though. So I don't know necessarily that you would be approved for more with an FHA loan. You can compare the two, right? So what will I get? Because you're going to have mortgage insurance, right? You're going to have a down payment. You're going to have closing costs. So I'm not sure if NACA approved you for $1,900. I'm not sure if FHA is going to approve you for much more than the $1,900. But it's worth getting a pre-approval, right, to see what the FHA approval will be, because FHA does have more lenient debt to income ratios, but you don't seem like you have that much debt. So just think about that. Make sure they're counting both your income and your child support. Sometimes if you have an older child, they don't count it because they figure you're not going to get it they want to see that you're going to get it for the next 3 years. So maybe if you have a 16-year-old, they're not counting that child support. So just make sure that you understand everything, because your debt to income ratio doesn't appear to be that high. I'm assuming you have nothing else, no student loans, no other kind of debt. But if they only approve you for $1,900 a month, then I'm not sure FHA will approve you for much more. But good question. As a real estate agent, how do you get the real estate listing? A lot of times they go to brokers, so individuals don't get them. You have to be a broker, and you can apply for your brokerage to be one of the brokerages that get some of those foreclosure listings. That's the answer to it. So you can ask your broker if they're thinking about applying, then the brokers give it to their agents if you're not a broker yourself. That's the answer to that question. How you can get as an agent foreclosure listings. Can I sell my house and buy a new one with NACA loan? I think you can. I'm pretty sure with NACA, as long as you don't currently own a house, you qualify. So you don't have to necessarily be a first-time home buyer with NACA. As long as you don't currently own a house, you would be able to qualify for a NACA loan. They may reach out to them to make sure of that, but they probably going to wait for you to actually sell your house, so they show that you don't own a property right now. They're really against, people trying to take advantage of the program, like to buy investment property and that sort of thing. So I would reach out to them ahead of time, see what the parameters are, and then go from there. But I'm pretty sure NACA only is people. It's mostly first-time home buyers, but for the most part, if you don't currently own a home, I think you still qualify for NACA. All righty. Okay, thank you all for joining me. I think it's going to be my last question. Make sure you're downloading my Wealth Weekends checklist. I'm going to start a special Wealth Weekends video specifically to get people to get 12 out of 12. And next week, I'm putting the checklist here again. I'm also putting my masterclass here again. Thank you all for joining me. I see 2 questions that came up, and then I'm going to do those. Shamika, hey Shamika, what are the pros and cons for applying for a tax exemption to lower your mortgage payments? Paying less on your mortgage, right? I think. So tax exemption to lower your mortgage payment. If you if you qualify, I think we're talking about the homestead exemptions. If you apply for a homestead exemption, they're going to reduce the amount that you owe for your property taxes. And every state is a little bit different as to what they offer. But some of the common ones are your primary residence, the residence you live in, not your investment properties. You can get a lower property tax amount, and also your senior exemption. So if you're a senior, then you can get an exemption on your property taxes as well. So it's going to lower. If you're escrowing say you're paying your mortgage, principal, interest, your taxes, and insurance all together, then that's going to give you a lower monthly payment because your taxes are going to be lower. Thank you, Shamika. All right. Okay, do you think the interest rate will decrease to the low 6%? Okay, so FHA is pretty much low 6% right now. The reason why they're not going any lower, like they went low, like I think the lowest I've seen probably was 6 point on average, FHA, 6.07 or something at some point in the last 2 weeks or so. However, remember when inflation goes down, interest rates will go down. So they paused for the January rate hike. They didn't raise interest rates. They didn't lower them. They just didn't do anything. But after that, the jobs numbers were really strong. Like people were still hiring a lot of people, which is bad for inflation because as people have more money, have more jobs, they spend more money. So interest rates inch back up in response to the jobs report coming really high. So I mean, the bad news is if unemployment was to go up, interest rates would probably go down. But you want to be employed, right? So you don't want to lose your job and get low interest rates. Then you really can't buy a house. So there's going to be this balance back and forth. But I think FHA loans are in the low sixes right now on average. You can double check that with mortgage reports, Mortgage News Daily. They keep a daily tracking of average mortgage rates. They keep conventional, VA, and FHA. Okay, this is Muslim. No other debt, just a car payment. This was a follow-up from the last question. He said that I have no other debt, just a car payment, and child support will continue for 8 more years. But my counselor insisted I can only get approved for $1,900. Yeah, I would go ahead and see what you could get with the FHA loan because a lot of times the counselors are doing their own budgeting and that sort of thing. They're probably being very, very conservative as to what they feel like you could spend because they look at your entire budget, which so maybe you're paying other things outside of that. I know. Doesn't sound like your child is 8. I don't know if there's childcare expenses. Like they look deep into what you're spending every month. So they may be looking at other things that an FHA lender wouldn't look at. All right. Thank you guys. Y'all have a great night. Download Wealth Weekends. I appreciate it. And join me next Thursday for investing. Bye-bye.